Hello and welcome to the podcast. This is Ron's Amazing Stories. We have stories that should thrill you a little and chill you a little.
It's amazing.
What you'll hear are adventures sent in by you guys, classic stories from the pulp mags, and episodes from the golden age of radio. We have special segments like Ghost Stories with Sylvia.
That's amazing.
And Paranormal Expeditions.
I think we're going to have a lot of fun.
So settle in for the next hour and enjoy the show. One more thing. You just might want to prepare yourself to be taken away from today.
Another 5-minute mystery.
This 5-minute mystery is being brought to you by the folks at Crazy Town.
Well, you know what they say about that.
Not really.
Put cream and sugar on a fly, and it tastes very much like a raspberry.
Oh, is that what they say?
Indeed.
Good to know.
Inspector Clark speaking. Yes? The Cooper rubies? Where? Blackstone's at 49th. I'll be right over.
Oh, come in, Inspector. Oh, this is terrible, terrible. And to think that we took such precautions. I just can't understand it.
Now, just a moment, Mr. Blackstone. Just calm down a bit and tell me what's happened.
I'll tell you what's happened. One of the Cooper rubies has been stolen. That's what's happened.
I understand that, Mr. Blackstone, but if I could have some information about them...
The Cooper rubies are a group of 15 of the most exquisite stones I have ever had in my possession. This woman, Mrs. Lloyd, came into my shop and asked to see the Cooper rubies.
I wanted to buy one, but I certainly don't now.
I was showing them to her myself. At the same time, I was showing this gentleman, Mr. Williams, some bracelets.
Just a simple little bracelet for my wife, Inspector.
I was interrupted by one of the salesgirls. I turned away for just a moment, and when I looked back, one of the rubies was gone. Now I ask you, who other than one of these two could have taken it?
Your assumption is quite sound, Mr. Blackstone. I'm very much afraid I'm going to have to ask you two to be searched.
Why, of all the
Leave your bag here on the desk. Mr. Blackstone's secretary will assist you in the other room. Mr. Williams, I'll search you in Mr. Blackstone's office. Let's see. Mrs. Lloyd's bag. Compact. Nothing here. Lipstick. No secret compartments.
I hope you're satisfied.
Gloves. Nothing in the pockets. Well, I guess that eliminates you, Mrs. Lloyd. Now, Mr. Williams' things. Nothing in the pockets. Billfold. Comb.
Does that eliminate me, Inspector?
I guess it does, Mr. Williams. Everything seems to be quite in order. Cigarette, Mrs. Lloyd?
No, thank you. I don't smoke.
Williams?
No, thanks. I have my pipe.
Oh, of course. Well, Mr. Blackstone, I've found your precious ruby.
You've what? But I haven't seen it.
No, you haven't seen it, Mr. Blackstone, but I know where it is. Mr. Williams, I arrest you for the theft of the Cooper ruby. How did the inspector discover Eric Williams' theft of the Cooper rubies? Do you know the clue? In a moment, we'll hear more. But first...
I know where that ruby is as well, and I deduced it using only the clues in the story.
Bloody amazing, Ron. You should be proud. Please enlighten us less mystically aware.
Well, it all has to do with the dimensional space and the use of cognitive misdirection.
I am English, but I'm afraid that sounded like gibberish to me.
And so it should. You see, the gem is hidden in the olfactory region of the mind's eye.
Ron, you are in need of therapy.
No, I'm not.
And now, let's see what Inspector Clark has to say.
But I don't understand. Where is the ruby, Inspector?
Well, Mr. Blackstone, when I asked these two people to submit to be searched, I knew the guilty one would hold out. For a moment, I thought I was licked. We seemed to have all their possessions, yet nothing was evident. Only when I offered Mr. Williams a cigarette did I notice that he was smoking a pipe. Here, Mr. Blackstone, is your ruby, concealed in the bowl of this pipe. And now, Mr. Williams, I'd like to show you something in bracelets. A double one, better known as the handcuff.
Wrong. You are amazing.
Why, thank you.
You couldn't have been more wrong, and your solution borders on complete mental dissociation.
Oh, is that your opinion, Mr. Dr. British Guy?
No, wrong. It is a statement of the facts, and I repeat, you are in need of therapy.
And you're a meanie butt. Hello and welcome to the podcast. Well, this is the last week before we begin the month of spooky. However, I do have some sad news for you.
We're canceling the appearance.
Oh no, nothing like that.
That's a relief.
I'll bet it is. No, the news is that we're actually going to begin the creepy stuff this week.
But that would mean...
Exactly. You are not going to be able to prepare for the spookiness. What we have this week are some really creepy stories from you guys to get the season going. Also, we have a story from Lights Out that, well, it's not spooky, but probably means the end of the world.
What are we going to do?
Well, we'll start with this from Audible. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories. They have over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, computer, Kindle. Whatever you have, you can listen to Audible on it. So what am I listening to? A Grave Business by Michael Lyons, narrated by Mike Carnes. A Grave Business is a lighthearted short story about a family-run graveyard that's likely to be the last of its kind. You see, the ghosts remain behind to take care of their unfinished business. The owners and their ghostly friends must work together to come up with a plan to save the business. How does it all work out? Well, it's worth a listen to find out. Here is a clip from the book that sets the scene pretty well.
Mr. Mortimer Burroughs, president and head undertaker of Burroughs & Clods, was depressed. "Business is just terrible," he moaned, his dark eyes grim. "Why, less than 20 years ago, people were dying to get into my establishment. Now I practically have to go out and recruit." "You think that's bad?" A disembodied voice echoed softly from behind his left shoulder. "What about me?" Mortimer rolled his eyes. "No. I am not dealing with this now. Not today," he thought. Pretending not to hear, he stood up from behind his beautifully polished, black mahogany desk. "Oh," he groaned, stretching his stocky arms wide. "I've got such a headache. I'm just going to close up shop early and head home. Without looking back, he fished for his conveyor pass with one chubby hand and drew on his suit jacket with the other. "Miss Templar," he called into the air.
"Yes, Mr. Burroughs,"
came the halting, electronic reply. Miss Templar made her shaky way into the office, navigating her golden-hued metallic body in a zigzag pattern across the room. Morty scowled as she came to a quivering halt and swiveled her glowing yellow eyes in his direction. "Open schedule," he commanded. He pushed back his overstuffed leather chair, tapping his foot in time to her soft clicks and hums.
"I'm sorry, I did not get that,"
she replied brightly.
"Did you say schedule?"
He sighed in controlled frustration. "Yes. Check schedule," he enunciated, stressing the command words with care. More hums and clicks ensued.
"Please clarify,"
she announced.
"Please say 1 for personal schedule, or say 2 for business schedule."
Gah, what a frustrating creature, he seethed under his breath.
"I'm sorry, I did not get that,"
she replied in a sweet tone.
"Please say 1 for personal schedule, or say 2 for business schedule."
Shaking his head, he straightened his tie and then slipped into his overcoat. He made his way around her shining bulk and stepped to the door, removing his battered black bowler from the hat tree and tapping it into place upon his round, balding head. "Artificial intelligence," he grumbled. "More like annoying idiocy. Oh, what I wouldn't do for a proper assistant." "Can I help?" A breath of cool mist stirred the air next to his ear. "Hush! No!" Mortimer whispered through gritted teeth. "If only my nephew's silly robots worked better," he growled inwardly. His nephew, Melvin Clods, was his partner and a regular genius at programming. But the money they'd wasted on this living assistant business had almost exhausted the company's funds. Between the dearth of business and Melvin's malfunctioning toys, the venerable institution of Burroughs was, itself, near to going under, for good. Ignoring the hovering presence at his shoulder, Mortimer shut his eyes and counted to 10. He took a deep breath, raising his chin. 2, he said, as carefully as possible.
"Thank you, sir."
This one truly is a short story lasting only about an hour, but it's so good that it deserves a place in your Audible collection. Also, it just happens that this one is on the free to listen to this week, and so it comes with no risk. Michael Lines is an award-winning author and writes how we all should. He targets his audience, and then you just get sucked in to enjoy the ride. And guess what? You can have a grave business today for free. Here's what Audible has set up for us. They are offering a free audiobook and 30 days to give you the opportunity to check out their service. This includes free access to the Audible Plus catalog, which is updated monthly with new titles. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories. Again, that's audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories, and you can get a grave business today. Thank you, Audible. And now, it's time for your stories.
These are your stories, sent by you, for you.
Well, here we are for another round of your stories. These all share a common thread. They're as creepy as all get out, and in most cases, the folks involved got out. This first one comes from Brian Stone of Portland, Oregon. Brian is 19 years old, attends Portland State University, and is a member of the PSU Paranormal Research Club. He has titled his story, The Laundry Monster. For context, I was 16 at the time and was working my first job. I was in charge of doing the laundry and filing papers for a yoga studio. I should note that the laundry room was in the basement and that I was completely by myself when this happened. It was a typical Sunday. A class had just finished and I was washing the towels. I had my headphones on and was putting the laundry into the washer when I had a feeling of being watched. I'd felt this many times in that basement when I was by myself, but it never felt malevolent. I do know a few deaths happened in the building when it was in use as a textile factory. I ignored the feeling as I knew our resident ghost, who we affectionately called Charlie, was probably just watching me. Charlie was never violent in any way. Oh, he'd occasionally knock things down and make the room feel cold. I was putting away the laundry when I felt a pain below my chest. When I lifted my shirt up, I saw 3 scratch marks, and they burned. I remember being in complete shock, taking pictures of the scratches and sending it to my boss, parents, and a few friends. They all believed that I had simply scratched myself with the door of the washer. Problem was, the washer door was closed when this happened. I did feel bad energy, but I ignored it. After all, I had to do my job. I went back to work when I heard footsteps coming up from behind me. I turned expecting to see Mara. She is one of the instructors and often came down to help after closing. No one was there, and those disembodied footsteps kept coming straight at me. Then came the growl. It was not like anything of this earth. The pure evil nature of it had me running out of the basement in pure terror. I came up into the main studio and Mara was there. We both went back downstairs but found nothing and all was quiet. That was the only time working at that place I experienced anything like that and have no explanation for it. Brian Stone, Portland, Oregon. Well, Brian, that is a crazy story, and I can't say that I would have continued to work in that basement, at least not alone. I would love to know the name and address of that building. I like to research things like that, and maybe I can find something that would help understand your problem. Thank you, Brian, for sharing your story with us. This story comes from Joshua Blevins, who lives and breathes in Seattle, Washington, my home state. Joshua has appropriately titled this one, Why I Ran Away from St. Mary's Graveyard. Hello, Ron. Thank you for your podcast. I listen most every week and always catch up when I don't. Your unique storytelling and variety of stories keeps me coming back. Also, I tell everyone that will listen to give it a try. I have a story for you that is definitely different, and I hope that you will read it, if you can. The year was 2009, and I was 10 years old. My family lived at the last house at the end of St. Mary's Road. I guess to say that the house was at the end of the street isn't quite correct. The street actually empties into the graveyard of St. Mary's. So growing up for me was Halloween 365 days a year. The sights and sounds of a cemetery can be, at times, unsettling. We have seen strange lights, heard creepy sounds, and have had experiences that aren't easily explained. Here is one of those events. My mom and dad love ghost hunting shows. In fact, we as a family would sit down each week and watch a few of them together. One of our favorites was Ghost Hunters with Grant and Jason. You see, my brother's name is Jason, my next-door neighbor's name is Grant, and of course, most people just called me Josh. Josh Gates often appeared on Ghost Hunters. So it stood to reason the three of us would play a game called Ghost Hunters. And what better place to do that than a graveyard? One October night, we decided that it was high time we explored the house in St. Mary's. It is an abandoned home that was probably used by a caretaker many years ago. Now it is an overgrown husk that looks downright creepy. We packed up our ghost hunting gear, which consisted of an old portable AM radio, several flashlights, an old tape recorder, and my dad's stud finder. Why the stud finder? Well, you see, my dad told us that it works just like a K2 meter, and of course, we believed him. We arrived at the house late afternoon. The gloom of the place was ominous, and we just about turned around right then. But then we remembered who we were. I was Josh Gates, my brother Jason Hawes, and of course, we had the great Grant Wilson. They never would have turned back. So we took out our equipment, turned on the AM radio, set it to a static-only channel, and headed inside. "Hello," I said. "Is there anyone there that wants to talk to us?" There was no reply. We showed our flashlights around the old room. Bits of broken furniture were everywhere, and there were cobwebs. So many cobwebs. I held out the stud finder, and it beeped happily, trying to find spirits and ghosties. Yes, I know it was actually looking for studs in the wall, but it was magical. Then came a scream. It was my brother Jason. He was incoherent at first, but we started to make sense of what he said. "Something's in the closet," he stammered. "It moved and was black as night." We all ran over, excited at the prospect of finding a shadow person. We threw open the door. I pointed the stud finder at it, and Grant held out the AM radio. The door swung wide and revealed an old moth-eaten raincoat. We laughed, and Grant said, "Debunked." We went back to work. A minute later, a light began to glow in the corner of the room. I turned towards it, and I swear to God that my stud finder began to chime and blink wildly. It made no sense. The light formed into a round shape and began to move around the room. Grant shined his flashlight at it, but the light was devoured like being sucked into it. I can't explain it any better than that. The AM radio that had been playing static suddenly fell silent, followed by the stud finder, and then all of our flashlights. A soft hum began, which became louder and louder. I couldn't move. I was so scared. I felt Jason pull my arm, and we ran out the front door, hopped on our bikes, and rode, hell-bent, to home. We didn't go back to that house for many years. When we did, it was all quiet and nothing happened. The only thing that remained from that day was that old rotten raincoat. I'm 22 years old now and no longer do any kind of ghost hunting. However, I surely do love hearing your stories. Joshua Blevins, Seattle, Washington. Okay, Joshua, that is some story, and I've not heard anything like this before. I would have to categorize this one as an orb story, but I wasn't there, so it's hard to be sure. Thank you for your tale, and it sounds to me like you just might have a few more. We would all love to hear them. Our last story isn't so much about running away as disappearing away. It comes from Luther Castro, who writes to us from Florida. Luther has titled it, The Old Dead Couple. This story is not my own and was originally told to me by my great-grandfather, Martin. He has an exceptional gift. He can see spirits and talk and hear them as well. When my grandfather was in his 20s, he visited a small town for family-related business, and while there, he went for a walk around the town. He came to this fairly old-looking house and felt the urge to knock on the door. So he did. An old woman answered the door and greeted Martin, as well as welcomed him into the home. They offered him tea and biscuits as he sat in the living room with the odd couple. He could tell that these people were exceptionally old. Their bodies and faces were covered with wrinkles. He sat with the couple for a few hours, talking to them both. He made his leave and returned to his motel. A few days passed, and he went for another walk through the town in hopes of coming across the friendly couple again. But to his surprise, as he walked down the street that the old house was on, he noticed that it was boarded up and practically in ruins. This riddled him with confusion, so he asked one of the neighboring homes about it, assuming that something must have happened. But the neighbor he spoke to told my great-grandfather that the house had been abandoned for over 10 years, and there was no old couple, or anyone for that matter, living in it. To this day, neither my gram nor my great-grandfather can logically explain what happened or how it happened, but it is my favorite story. Luther Castro, Florida. Well, Luther, time shift? Maybe. Perhaps ghostly apparitions reliving a favorite scene over and over. Who can say? I can say that this is a real head-scratcher, and I love it. Thank you, Luther, for sharing it with us. Well, that's it for this time. If you have a story that you want to share, like Luther did, head to the main website at ronsamazingstories.com and click on the story submission banner. Leave your story, give it a title, and tell me where you're from. I'll read it if I can. Our featured story comes from the OTR series Lights Out. Now, you might suppose that this one's going to be a horror story, and it does have that, but I think it has more of a Twilight Zone feel. I could definitely see Rod Serling say something like this. Picture this little man with monumental aspirations. He wants the people around him to know that he is big man on campus. The problem is his thoughts and deeds just might destroy the world. He is about to enter the Twilight Zone. The truth of the matter is this story was written 30 years before the Twilight Zone was a thing. It comes from Lights Out, is titled Oxychloride X, and first aired on January 26, 1938.
Lights out, everybody. It is later than you think.
This is Arch Obler. Someone has said that the two mainsprings which drive the world are hunger and the will to power. I think we'll all agree about the hunger, but as to the will to power, well, sometimes I think it's not quite as strenuous as that. There are some people in this world who don't want to run anything. They just want to be liked. And that's the mainspring of our story tonight, Oxychloride X.
So I says to him, I says, well, sir, I'd like to be obliging, but I really haven't got the time. And he says to me, he says, well, Mr. Jackson, after all, we're making this proposition only to a few outstanding student representatives on the campus. And we do feel that you should be interested in our proposition.
Well,
so,
what did you say?
Well, I said, mister, I can't be bothered. Just can't be bothered. And I gets in my car and off I goes.
But, Bob, free clothes just for wearing them around the campus?
Listen, Stan, my boy, what I want to be a clothes horse for any old haberdashery. My old pappy's got more money than he knows what to do with. Now, what for, I ask?
Well, I guess you got something there. Say, who are you going to take to the dance Saturday night?
Haven't made up my mind.
How about that new number over at the Roto House?
No, thank you, brother.
What's the matter?
Well, did you ever take a look at her feet?
No, sir. Never got below her chin.
Hold it. Yeah?
Ray Stewart to see you, Stan.
Yeah. Send him on up.
Ray Stewart. Who's he?
Well, we're still short one pledge, aren't we?
Oh, yeah, I know, but Ray Stewart, who is he?
Oh, I met him over in chemistry. Got a mind like a textbook.
Oh, but who is he? We can't pledge a man just because he's a grind.
Well, we could use a few grinds around here. Exams come around, there's nothing like a few of those brainy boys pull us through.
But who is he? Where's he from? Who's his family? Who's his
Hold it. Come on in, Ray.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, it was good of you to bother to come over tonight.
It was good of you to ask me.
Oh, not at all. Ray, I want you to meet the president of our house, Bob Jackson. Mr. Jackson, Mr. Stewart.
I'm certainly glad to make your acquaintance. I might as well admit this is the first time I've ever been in a fraternity house.
Really?
Sit down, Ray. Make yourself at home.
Oh, thank you.
Now, tell me, Ray, do you ever go in for any sports back in your prep days?
Oh, no. I never had much time for that sort of thing.
No?
No, I think that sports should be put into their proper place. After all, I'm sure you agree they aren't particularly important.
No? And what, might I ask, is important in your estimation, Mr. Stewart?
Doing things. Being someone.
What?
Doing things man's never done before. Taking the elements and transmuting them into things which never existed until you thought of them. That's important. That's being almost godlike, isn't it?
Mister, how you talk.
Oh, sorry, I get sort of carried away.
Yeah. Well, that's all right. Bob, this boy sure knows his chemistry.
Huh?
Oh, I really don't know so much.
Say, I ought to know better. You pulled me over some tough spots in this course.
I'm very glad to help you whenever I can. If I lived here, I could help you all the time. I could help you too, Mr. Jackson.
If I need help, I know where to get it.
Oh, I didn't mean to offend.
It's all right, Stewart. Now, tell me, you're from around Chicago way, aren't you?
Oh, no, Milwaukee. Lived there for years.
Don't tell me I'm one of those Bruin families.
Oh, no. We're not wealthy people at all. My father runs a small business. It isn't much, but we get along.
Oh.
I don't think money's important anyway if a person's ambitious. Do you, Mr. Jackson?
Oh, no. What's money?
You fellas may think this funny, but well, I always thought it's more important what a fella does than what he has. I mean, I've always had the feeling that someday, somehow, I'm going to do something really important. Maybe even miraculous.
Well, now, what do you expect to do? Discover the missing link?
Yes, Stewart. What is this miracle you expect to perform?
Well, I don't know exactly. Ever since I've been just a kid, I've been interested in chemistry, and I've had a feeling that someday I'd perform an experiment, mix certain chemicals together, and something would happen that never happened before.
Now you hear that, Stan? A miracle man.
Amazing, my dear Bob. Simply amazing.
I know it sounds silly, but the things I dream about always seem to work out.
Well, would you mind telling us the last miracle that worked out?
Well, this.
This? Oh, what do you mean?
Well, as long as I can remember, I've always wanted to belong to a fraternity, and here I am. I mean, you invited me.
Oh, just a minute there, fellow. Mr. Stewart, it's been awfully nice of you to come over and visit with us, and someday we'll have you back again. But now we've got some studying to do, so if you don't mind...
Oh, no, not at all. It was nice of you to invite me over. Well, good night, fellas.
Good night.
Good night.
Homeless screwy crackpot.
Yeah. Did you see the look in his eye when he was talking about miracles?
Yeah. Well, it'll be a miracle if he ever gets back into this house again, I'll tell you that. What in the world ever made you ask him over here?
Well, I didn't know. How was I to know he's a crackpot?
Pledge him to our fraternity. Pledge him to the booby hatch.
Mr. Stewart, if you please, Mr. Stewart.
Yes, Professor?
Mr. Stewart, might I ask if you're anxious to sever your relationship with this university?
No, sir.
Then might I ask why in creation you persist in ignoring my warnings? In this laboratory, you're to perform the experiments given you to perform. Understand? Given you to perform.
Yes, sir.
Then might I ask why you persist in your, shall I call it, original experiments? Perhaps it's your intention to blow up the university. Or just the laboratory.
I'm sorry.
You'll be more than sorry if I find you doing this sort of thing again. Now, take down this apparatus and continue with the work in your textbook.
Yes, sir.
This is my last warning, so bear it in mind.
Oh, hello, Stuart. How about loaning me your notebook for a few hours?
Oh, hello, Jackson. You haven't been to the lab much, have you?
Oh, no, I haven't, but I can make it up. Well, we've been pretty busy over the house. Initiations and all that sort of thing.
Yeah. Jackson.
Yeah?
You, never invited me back. I thought maybe you forgot.
Oh, well, you know how those things are.
I wrote my mother that I was joining your fraternity.
Well, that was a sap thing to do.
Was it?
Well, we hadn't pledged you. Stan simply invited you over so I could talk to you.
But you said you wanted me to come back.
Oh, now, look here, fella. Don't be stupid about this. We didn't pledge you, so that's that.
You're not going to pledge me?
Certainly not.
But why?
I don't have to tell you why.
But you've got to tell me.
Oh, quit pawing me, will you? All right, you're asking for it, so here it is. We didn't pledge you because we think you're a crackpot.
A what?
A crackpot. You talk about miracles. You spend every minute of your time here in the lab monkeying around with things you don't know anything about, getting yourself in all kinds of trouble. Yeah, and you look like a first-class screwball.
But I'm just trying
I don't care whatever it is you're trying. It isn't normal. I'll bet you never had a glass of beer in your life. And if a girl ever looked at you, you'd fall over in a faint.
Then you're not going to pledge me? You're not going to
No, we're not going to pledge you. So if your mom expects you to be in a fraternity, you better start cooking up one of those miracles, fella. A first-class miracle.
Sleep. It's so late. Sleep. Got to sleep.
Not gonna pledge.
That's what he said. Not gonna pledge me. Why do I keep thinking about it? If I could only sleep. Sleep.
We think you're a crackpot.
Oh, I gotta stop thinking about these things. It's not healthy to think what I'm thinking.
Crackpot. Not gonna pledge.
Crackpot. What's the matter with my head? I heard him talking in it. Over and over and over again. I'm not crazy. I'm not. I'm as good as you are. I'm as good as both of you put together. Stop saying that. Stop saying it. I'll show you. I'll show you both. I'm better than you are. I'm better than anybody. I'll show you. I'll show you. I'll show you. Talk about miracles. I'll give you miracles. The lab. Gotta get into it. I'll give you miracles. Dark in there. I've got to get in. Oh, blasted door. Gotta get in. Window. I'll show you. So dark in here. Gotta find a lab table. Gotta make a miracle.
Who's there? Who's there, I say?
Watchman.
Come on now. Who's there? Talk up.
You don't have to get so excited. I'm a student.
Student, eh? Let's have a look at you.
That flashlight, you're blinding me.
I've got to see who you are, don't I? Yeah, I know you. Seen you on the campus.
I told you I'm a student.
Well, that don't give you no right to be here after hours. How'd you get in here? Oh, broke a window now, did you, huh?
I didn't break the window.
But I heard the glass.
So did I, and I followed the man in here.
Man, what are you talking about?
Give me your flashlight and I'll show you.
All right. Here.
Look behind you.
No.
No one will stop me. No one. Miracle. Gotta make one. Got to. Got to. Got to. 10 cc barium. 5 cc selenium oxychloride. Oh, good, good. You're working out just as I planned.
Who's there? Who's that working back?
Professor.
Oh, it's you, Stuart. And after all my warnings.
You're just in time, Professor.
Yes, just in time to have you thrown out of the university. What are you doing there? What is this mess of equipment?
It's my miracle.
Miracle? What are you talking about?
My miracle.
Are you insane? Take it apart, all of it, at once.
Listen to it bubbling. A beautiful sound, isn't it, Professor?
Take it apart, I tell you. Empty out the retort.
No, I've got to wait.
Are you mad? Turn out the burners. All right, I'll turn them off for you.
No, stay where you are.
Stuart, Put down that acid.
I'll smash the bottle on your head if you touch anything on that table.
No, don't throw it. Put the bottle of acid down, Stuart. Please.
My experiment. My miracle. Bubbling and boiling and stewing. It will work, Professor. It's got to work.
But what is it?
I told them I'd create something that no other man has. I told them. And I will, Professor. You hear me? I will.
But what?
A solvent. A solvent more powerful than anything the world has ever known.
What do you mean? What are you talking about?
Listen to it bubble.
You said solvent. Explain yourself.
Yes, solvent. Solvent that will dissolve steel like a hot flame.
What do you say?
You heard me say it. A solvent that will dissolve steel faster than a razor cutting through paper. Do you know what that means? Run a line of this liquid across a steel girder. The girder will crumple like a falling tree. Pour some of my solvent into a glass shell and bomb the cities. I tell you, it'll make war too horrible for men to endure.
You crazy boy, you. You know what you're talking about?
I'm talking about that. That liquid there. Listen to it. Listen to it sing.
Why, no such solvent exists. Selenium oxychloride, perhaps, but to do the impossible things you talked about would require a quantity so...
Oh, the beaker. It cracked.
Well, do something. That liquid's flying all over my bench, my laboratory.
The stone of the bench. It's eating through the stone.
Oh, stop it.
The liquid. It's eating through the stone bench.
No, it can't be.
It's eating through the slate of the floor. The hole's getting bigger and bigger.
Run!
Oh, I've done it. I've created something no other man has done. A solvent that dissolves anything. Anything. Anything.
Hey, what happened? What's the matter? The lamp. I guess it's on fire. Well, where's the fire? I can't see anything. The whole school's out here. Hey, fellas, what's up?
Nobody seems to know. Something's going wrong in the lab. Firemen won't let us in.
Something burning?
I don't know. Can't get near enough to find out.
I can't see any fire.
There's plenty of smoke going.
Plenty of excitement. Read about it in tomorrow's paper, I'll bet you. Hey, listen to that sound.
Yeah, it sounds like water.
Gosh, what is it? Hey, everybody back! Back! The building! It's going to crash! Run!
I did it. I did it. A solvent that dissolves anything. Anything.
Chief, look at this.
What's the matter, Murph? Somebody have sex doublers?
Get a load of this, Chief. Came in over the news wires. Read it.
Additional on Whitmore University. Mysterious cavity on campus growing larger hourly. More follows. Mysterious cavity. Hey, what is this, a dentist advertisement?
Don't you remember, Chief? A couple hours ago, that flash about something eating a hole so big a building fell in it. This is the follow-up. The thing's getting bigger. What do you want to do about it?
Forget it.
What?
Don't you see through a gag when it hits you in the face? Somebody's just having fun on the wires. Ha! Mysterious cavity growing bigger. Well, when it's as big as a hole in your head, that'll be news, Murph. That'll be news.
Anything. It dissolves anything. And I did it. I discovered.
Yes. Hello. What is it? Yes, this is Dr. Whitmore. Who is this? Who? National News Service. Now, look here, my good man. It's 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'm supposed to be resting. My vacation, you know. What? My university. Building collapsed. But are you sure? Yes, I'll call them long distance at once. No, I can't give you any sort of statement now. Hang up, man. I've got to get the operator. Operator. Give me long distance. Give me... What? Long distance is calling? Well, put them on. Hello. Yes, this is he. Rogers? Yes, Rogers. What? Did? That's impossible. Larger? But how could it grow larger? Chemicals? Are you drunk, man? Insane? It's impossible.
But you must do something.
Listen, mister. I'm a fireman, not a magician.
But that hole, it's 20 feet wider than it was 10 minutes ago.
Mister, I don't know what it's all about. No fire and the ground's burning right away.
We have $5 million worth of property on this ground. If that won't
For
spread...
Pete's sake, leave me alone, will you? We've been throwing water on the edges of the thing ever since the building fell in, but it don't do no good.
This out of tonight's paper. The latest news on the Whitmore University mystery. What at first was treated lightly by all newspapers as either a hoax or a shifting of earth stratum has now developed into an authentic yet unbelievable situation. The hole, which began at the side of the chemical laboratory building, is now 300 feet in diameter and spreading with unbelievable rapidity. Fire departments and fire experts from all neighboring communities within a radius of 100 miles have been called in, but have been helpless to combat the rapidly spreading pit. Many conflicting theories have been propounded as to the cause of the cave-in, but at last reports nothing definite had been determined.
That's enough, Professor Parker. What about the solvent?
Unbelievable, unexplainable as it is apparently self-regenerating and oxidizing anything it comes in contact with so quickly that we see no fire but only the rapidly growing cavity where the earth is being consumed.
But, Professor Parker, what is this solvent? Surely you don't expect us to believe that this student you were telling us about...
I mean exactly that.
Oh, preposterous. It's a fault in the structure of the earth. There is no such thing as a self-regenerating solvent. Simple cave-in, that's all it is.
Gentlemen, if you please. What I know, I know.
Oh, it's preposterous.
Gentlemen, if you please. If my professional reputation is not enough to substantiate what I've said, then at least you'll listen to the boy himself. He's here. Listen to him.
Well, why should we?
Yes, gentlemen, if you'll listen, I'll tell you. You'd better listen to me.
Gentlemen, please.
What Professor Parker said is true. It is a solvent. It dissolves anything it touches quickly, furiously. The byproducts of that dissolution give it new strength and movement. And I discovered it, gentlemen.
I know, but what will happen? What can we do?
We can wait.
Wait? How can we wait? Look out there. The hole's within 2 feet of another building already. You've got to stop it. At once. If you don't...
The building! The foundation's undermined! Crashing!
Mother in heaven. Harris Hall. Caved right in the hole. Professor Parker. You boy, listen. Which chemicals did you use? We've got to fight it with chemicals. Spread them around the edge. Neutralize this solvent.
Yes, that's it. Chemicals. We'll neutralize the reaction.
No, gentlemen. Listen. You may neutralize the reaction at the edges of the hole. But you forget one thing.
What? What are you talking about?
The solvent is eating downward at many times the rate it's eating outward. You may neutralize the reaction at the edges of the hole. But have you forgotten? It's eaten the hole 1/4 mile deep already. And it's eating into the earth faster and faster. How are you going to stop that?
Faster and faster at an ever-increasing rate, this strange cancer on the surface is eating away. It is now approximately 14 hours since the phenomenon began, and already it has eaten outward a distance approximately 1 mile in diameter, with a resulting damage of over 1.5 million in property.
Truly, the most astounding factor in this catastrophe is the fact that the hole is increasing in depth at an unbelievable rate. At our last reports, approximately 10 minutes ago, the pit had reached a depth of approximately 3 miles, and experts apparently refuse to predict how much further this earth cancer will go. What only a handful of hours ago was a quiet section of the country in which stood the Whitmore University is now a great gaping pit in the surface of the earth, out of which rise strange noxious gases as that burning something eats deeper and deeper and deeper into the bowels of the earth. The latest sonic recordings indicate that the shaft has now reached a depth of 11 miles, 2,342 feet. I'm right on the scene and will continue to send reports as quickly as I get.
Sure is a crowd here. Yeah, 500,000, they say.
Yeah, watching it and waiting. And for what?
Ain't it ever gonna stop, Stan?
Don't ask me. I don't know. It's going deeper and deeper every minute. There ain't no stopping it.
Listen to them. Scared, ain't they? Every one of them.
Well, aren't you?
Yeah, sure. That hole going deeper and deeper into the ground, and nobody can stop it. And what happens when it gets all the way through, nobody knows. Sure, I'm scared. Scared plenty.
Earthquake. Help. Send help. Volcano erupting. City on fire. Martial law declared. Tidal waves sweeping inland. Nothing can stop it. Nothing. Earthquake. Fire. Tidal waves. We're coming to an end. Judgment of God. Judgment of God.
From Siberia to Cape Town to San Francisco and around the world again. I tell you, the Earth's ripping apart. And I tell you, it's that hole in the ground that's done it. It's affected the rotation of the Earth. Unbalanced things.
Yes, and it's biting deeper every minute. What'll happen when it eats through to the other side? The ocean pouring through. We'll die. We'll all die.
Who's to blame? Who's to blame? Who's to blame?
It's that kid who's to blame.
Yeah, we read it in the papers. That crazy college kid.
There he is. That's him. That's him.
No, let me go, you fools, you. I've done a great thing, a wonderful thing. Created something no one ever thought of. No, let me down. Let me down. Let me down, you fools. I started the song, but I didn't know this would happen. You can't blame me for a miracle.
Throw him in the hole.
No.
Yes, throw him in the hole. He made it.
No, don't throw me down in there. There's no bottom to it. No, no.
Here, put him down here on the grass.
Dan?
Boy, oh boy, will this be a sensation on the campus.
But, Watchman, how did it happen?
Well, I'm making my rounds of the grounds as usual, and all at once in the moonlight I see this fellow walking across the grass. So I go up to him and I see the fellow's walking in his sleep.
In his sleep?
Yeah. Just when I starts to grab him easy like, he pulls loose, yells something about, "Don't throw me in, don't throw me in." And then he runs across the campus and dives headfirst down into the swimming pool. And it's empty. When I pull him out, he's like he is now. Busted neck.
But who is he? Anyone recognize him?
Yeah. Yeah, I know him. Stewart's his name. Ray Stewart. Kind of a screwy little crackpot. Always talking about creating miracles with chemicals. I wonder what he thought was happening to him diving down that hole.
Great story. And I think now you see why I compared it to a Twilight Zone episode. I think it just might have been a classic if it had. Lights Out was an old-time radio program devoted to mostly horror and the supernatural. It was created by Willis Cooper and then eventually taken over by Arch Obler. Versions of Lights Out aired on different networks at various times from 1934 to the summer of 1947. The series eventually made the transition to television, where it didn't quite do as well as The Twilight Zone. Lights Out was one of the earliest radio horror programs, predating Suspense and Inter Sanctum.
Not so important times in history.
In this segment, we take a look at historical events that may otherwise go unnoticed. We look at history with a fish-eyed lens, giving a perspective that should provide no insight to anyone or any time. But it is historical, or hysterical, as the case may be. Join us now for this event in history. Have you ever heard of Genghis Khan? Of course you have. But what about Kataluun? Well, she's quite famous as well, and is of the same lineage as Genghis. The year was 1260 when she was born. The Mongol Empire was starting to fray at the seams, and civil war was imminent. Basically, some of the Khans favored the old ways of riding, shooting, and the nomadic lifestyle, while others were more into politics, which eventually led to a conflict that would last 30 years. Throughout this, the emperor relied on one person above all others when it came to military expertise. And spoiler alert, it was not any of his 14 sons. It was Kataluun. So as you can imagine, growing up with 14 brothers in an old-school nomadic Mongolian household, she had no shortage of testosterone around her at any given time. She grew up incredibly skilled with riding horses and shooting bows. I mean, picture that. You're up against a horde of Mongolian warriors riding into battle. You're tracking the movements of this huge chunk of stowed soldiers trying to read which way they're going. Suddenly, one of them, a woman no less, darts out, picks off a random person in your group, and then runs back before you even know what's happened. That is intimidating as heck. But all of this paled in comparison to her skill with wrestling. The Mongols valued physical ability above all things. They bet on matches constantly. Now, these weren't your modern-day matches separated out by things like, weight class, gender. Anyone could and did wrestle anyone else. Then they kept going until one of them hit the floor or were dead. This was the environment in which Catalun competed against men of all shapes and sizes, and guess what? She was undefeated. Her father desperately wanted to see his daughter married, but she refused to do so unless her potential suitor was able to beat her in wrestling. So she set up a standing offer available to all comers. Beat her, and she'd marry you. Lose, and you'd have to give her 100 horses. She ended up with 10,000 horses and no husband. She remained stubborn about marriage even as she got older and pressure mounted on her to marry. Marco Polo tells of a time when a cockier than average suitor challenged her. This dude was so confident that he bet 1,000 horses instead of the usual 100. Apparently, he was a decent fella too, because the emperor and his wife really dug him. They approached her privately and begged her just to throw the match. Lose intentionally, they said, so you can marry this totally decent guy. She walked away from that match 1,000 horses richer. Unfortunately, due to her stubborn refusal to take a husband, people began to talk. Rumors began to spread around the empire that she was having an illicit affair. These sort of slanderous rumors, as you may begin to note, are a recurrent problem for historical rejected princesses. Realizing the problems that her refusal to marry was causing her family, she finally settled down with someone, although who exactly is subject to some debate. Whoever it was never beat her at wrestling. Well, that was episode number 510, and Brian Stone, Joshua Blevins, and Luther Castro provided the stories. Thank you guys. Just a reminder that next week, the month of Spooky begins, 2021. It's going to be a lot of fun. If you want to follow the podcast or the blog, head to ronsamazingstories.com. There you will find any of the links I mentioned and how to contact us. Do you want to help the show? The best thing you can do is to tell your friends all about it, and please leave reviews or feedback wherever you listen. Clicking that follow or like button makes us grow. Thank you for listening, and I hope you come again to find out what are Ron's Amazing Stories.
All of the vintage audio used in the podcast is believed to be in the public domain. Ron's Amazing Stories does not own the rights to any of the old-time radio used here. If you hold the rights to any of the shows played, please contact us immediately at ronsamazingstories.com.